the thought of the day is, in this isolation we're in, move your body, get up, stretch. If you can go for a walk, if your parents let you do it, go for a walk. Make sure you're constantly moving your body. It will get the energy flowing and it will make you feel better. And our guest today knows a little bit something about that. She was a dancer for quite a few years. She teaches mindful movement. Her name is Kate Johnson. She is a master meditation teacher. She is a social activist, and she is the author of an upcoming book called Radical Friendship: How to Give Yourself Self-Love, I'm messing this up, and to find your people in an unjust world. Sorry, Kate, you can correct the title for us right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Simmons. The title of the book is Radical. We were close. It's Radical Friendship: 7 Ways to Love Yourself and Find Your People in an Unjust World.
And we have lots of questions about that. So tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
My name's Kate Johnson. I'm from Chicago originally, and I moved to New York when I was in my early 20s to pursue a career as a modern dancer. So I went to the Alvin Ailey School, which had a partnership with Fordham University. It still has this program. It's a BFA in dance for my dancers out there. And I actually am really celebrating my choice to get a BFA instead of just a conservatory degree, because it allowed me later on to go back to school and get a master's in performance studies. But yeah, when I got a graduate degree, I thought I wanted to be a dance history, cultural studies teacher. Realized that I didn't. So I ended up picking up what I had done kind of all along through graduate school, which was teaching dance and yoga to kids in New York City public schools. I taught everybody from pre-K and kindergartners how to do mindfulness by putting a feather on their belly and having them pay attention to it go up and down when they breathe, to high schoolers and even school administrators and school safety. So when at some point when I was teaching yoga, one of the principals I was working with said to me, do you know how to teach meditation? And I thought, well, I meditate, but I don't know how to teach it. And he said that he'd read all these amazing studies about how mindfulness could help with some of the health disparities we were seeing in the high school population, like anxiety and depression and high blood pressure. And so I thought, okay, let me go get a mindfulness teacher training so that I can help serve my students better. So that was about 15 years ago. I did my first mindfulness teacher training and started incorporating it into my classes in schools. And pretty soon the meditation work started superseding the work that I was doing with dance and yoga. So just mindfulness was more and more in demand. And I got more and more interested in how meditation could help us develop the inner skills to be able to show up for ourselves and show up for this life in a better way.
And, a lot of your work is rooted in bringing mindfulness to kids, but also, let's not play it down. Kate, so all of you watching this right now, she might look young. She is an internationally respected mindfulness teacher, international. So we have a very special person here. Can you walk us through some of this mindfulness?
Yeah, well, just to say about the other part of my work, so now, in addition to having worked a lot in education, I work a lot with organizations and businesses. And I feel like since some of your young people are going to be looking at job prospects, what I do with organizations is I help them with what's called strategic planning. So we look at where they are now, what are their goals in terms of their culture inside the workspace, and also what they want to do in the world. And I help them use mindfulness and physical awareness to more clearly see and sense what is needed for them to do, within their work culture and within their plan to inform their next moves as an organization. So I do a lot of work with businesses. I do a lot of work with nonprofit organizations around sustainability and well-being. And I just wanted everyone to know that's a real job. You can do mindfulness in business settings.
Good. Somebody asked that question. They said, "Is this your real job?" That was a question from a kid. We don't have to answer now. Very good. Yeah.
I mean, this right here isn't my real job, but I do get paid to advise leaders and businesses. This I do for the love.
So can we walk? Can you walk us through some mindfulness?
Yeah, let's do mindfulness. And so I know that the people who are watching have all done a bit of mindfulness practice. I'll just go over briefly what we'll do, and then we'll do it. So you know that mindfulness is a way of synchronizing your mind and your heart and your body kind of all in one place at one time. And that a lot of times we go through our lives where, you know, our body's sitting here, but our mind might be, you know, in the future, our heart somewhere in the past, and we kind of get a little bit disconnected. And that's not a particularly like calm or well way to go about the world. And so the process of mindfulness helps us to kind of gather and unify our attention all in one place at one time. It makes for a really powerful heart and mind. And it's a state that a lot of us identify as well-being. So if you imagine that, like say you're, you know, this is a feeling of your breath, okay? And this is your mind. And when you practice mindfulness, you just take your mind and you place it on the feeling of your breath, right? And it's together, synchronized. And for a while, you know, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then, you know, what was that sound? Did my little brother hurt himself? You know, or it might be like, what am I going to eat for dinner? Something smells weird in the kitchen. You know, something comes along and distracts us, and our mind pops off our body. And the body's still here, breathing in and breathing out. But the mind is like several, you know, it's somewhere else. So it's floating around. And then eventually we're like, oh, I'm not paying attention to my breath. I'm thinking about dinner. And then we have this choice to bring it back and place the mind on the breath again. And that dance, you know, of going away and coming back, we do many, many times throughout the mindfulness practice. What I want to focus on today is the quality of how we notice and how we come back. Because oftentimes that moment when we notice, oh, I'm not thinking about the breath anymore, I'm thinking about dinner, there can be this additional layer of, you know, come on, Kate, like this is the third time I caught you, you know, wandering around. Why don't you just stay on the breath? Okay, just stay there. You know, there can be a little bit of harshness. And what I want to say is that the activity of mindfulness is very important, but it's not just important what we're doing, it's important how we're doing it. And for today, I really want you to bring a quality of friendliness to your own practice. So I'll guide you in this a little bit, but I just want to give you an overview. And let's go ahead and start. You can just, wherever you are, close your eyes or soften them, you know, lower them down if you can't close them. And take a couple deep breaths with me. Just to like really feel your breath coming and going more deeply. As you breathe in, you can feel the heart and lungs expanding. As you breathe out, letting the shoulders relax, the face soften, your heart soften. Good. And after those few deeper breaths, you can let that deep breath go. So you're just letting your breath come and go naturally. And then before we start paying attention to the breath, I'd like you to reflect on a friendship in your life that you value, like a best friend, whether it's one that you have or one that you hope to have. And just think about one of the qualities of that friendship that is really important to you. Maybe it's humor. Maybe it's being able to be real with someone. Maybe it's compassion. Maybe it's being a good listener. You think about what quality it is for you. Do you think, oh yeah, that's really important to me in terms of my friendships? And if you could see it kind of written like a neon sign in front of you, that's great. Just like seeing that word, that phrase. And then let that word or phrase hang kind of in the background of your mind as you start to pay attention to your feeling of breathing. So this is us putting the cap on the marker, putting the mind on the feeling of the breath, and just noticing what it feels like to breathe. Then you might notice warm air coming in through your nostrils, feeling of fullness around the heart, cool air leaving the nostrils, relaxing. So the what of mindfulness, as we know, is paying attention to what's happening, in this case, in our breath, and really feeling each breath come and go. And if you're feeling your breath, you're automatically in the present moment. Breath is only happening right now. So that's the what of what we're doing. Taking our mind, placing it on our body, the feeling of breathing. And now I'd like you to bring in a little bit of the how and remember that word or that phrase that captured what's really important to you in the friendship, and see if it's possible to feel your breath with this quality in mind. So what does it mean to have compassion or a sense of humor, in your meditation? What does it mean to be loyal or to be honest? Whatever that word is for you, see if you can bring that quality, that way of being into your mindfulness of breathing practice right now. And bringing the quality to your practice when you notice your mind not on the breath. And bringing it in the way that you come back. And now, before we close this mindfulness practice, just want to ask you to imagine, with that quality of friendship in the foreground of your mind, what would it be like to have to fully express that quality in your relationship with yourself? How you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you see yourself. What would it be like to really, have that quality be first in your relationship with yourself? Just notice how it feels. Imagine what that might be like. What images come to your mind? And second, I want you to imagine what it would be like if you use this quality in the foreground, that's what came up first in your relationship with other people. So you might think about your friends or maybe your siblings, guardians, neighbors, people you don't know. What if you express this quality with everybody that you kind of come in contact with on a day-to-day basis? And then finally, if you could imagine what it would be like to bring this quality more fully into your relationship with the world as a whole. So how you relate to the planet and all its people, near and far away, people you know and people you don't know. What would it be like to be, a true friend to the whole world? At least to have that quality in mind. And now I'll go ahead and ring the bell in a few moments. So just taking a couple of deep breaths, remembering if there's anything that you realize or notice about yourself when you did this practice, and just making a mental note so you can remember it later, maybe even write it down or journal about it later today.
That was amazing. That was completely amazing.
What was amazing about it?
And just the feeling of openness. And then in the middle of it, I could feel the cap come off the pen, and it said something like, "You just messed up the name of her book in front of everyone." And then
it's okay. Denise, I forgive you.
I began breathing again and putting the cap back on and continuing it, and then reminded myself, radical friendship. That was incredible. We have questions about friendship that we polled the kids. So here's some data, right? We asked the kids, do friends help you feel better during COVID? 45% said my friends make me feel much better. 36.5% my friends help me feel a little better. 13.6% said my friends don't really have much effect on how I feel. And 4.5%, very small number, said my friends make me feel worse. So we asked, what's the best part of your friendship? About 41% said my friends understand me better than my family. Wow. 22.7% said my friends make me feel accepted and included. 9% said my friends calm me down when I'm upset. And 4.5% said my favorite part is being generous to my friends, right? Is the generosity. And I know you speak about generosity too. So because that's such a small number, maybe there's an opportunity there to actually build generosity. And here are some specific responses. The kids said, my friends, we laughed together through messages. Talking came up a lot. The talking is very therapeutic. When I'm sad and depressed, when I was sad and depressed and my partner broke up, my friends were there to comfort me and tell me everything was going to get better. We discuss going back to school all the time. They keep me company when I'm down. We share things in common like music. We FaceTime. They keep a smile on my face. They try to motivate me to do my schoolwork, and they keep me sane. So we've been sharing resources, and by writing this book, you really generated a whole toolkit for something that is around us in our daily lives, and we can tap into this toolkit. So why do you think friendship is an important part of emotional and mental health? How does it play a role?
Yeah, well, I think friendship, so many reasons, but I think one is that friendship is an opportunity to, to practice some of the qualities that we're trying to cultivate in mindfulness, right? Like our ability to be kind, to focus, to really be there for ourselves, to have a sense of clarity and wisdom, that we don't have to just have that, 5 or 10 minutes a day when we practice mindfulness, but we can actually bring it into our relationships, because, the better we start to be able to listen to ourselves and our own minds and hearts without judgment, right? And to be really present with ourselves, not to be in the future, in the past, the more we'll be able to bring those qualities into our friendships, and people can really feel them. But then also so much, especially in this COVID-19 crisis, to be able to feel that we're not alone, and to remember that the things that we're going through are a shared experience, that and to be able to share those honestly with our friends can be really beneficial for I think our mental and emotional well-being. It's one thing to feel scared or to feel anxious. It's another thing to feel like you're the only one that feels that way. That feeling that way is wrong, and that you can't express that to anybody. You have to hide it, right? So those things make the whatever we're feeling worse. And those things can be alleviated if we just are able to open up and share them with someone who understands us and someone who cares.
Related to that, a 9th grader asked, you talk about meditation and friendship, but aren't they opposite? Because meditation happens alone.
Yeah. Well, just like I mentioned, I think that there's a lot of the qualities that we have, that we develop in meditation, that we can bring into our friendships. But I also think of meditation as a way of making friends with yourself, right? A lot of times, when I talk to people about their meditation practice, the way that people are talking to themselves in their own minds, they would never talk to a friend like that. They would never say, you're so stupid. I don't like your body. Why'd you say that thing? Why'd you forget the name of her book? You'd be like, oh, it's okay, boo. You're doing great. Like everybody forgets something sometimes, like no problem. She's cool with it. You remember later on. So it's like the ability to, in meditation, actually spend time with ourselves, right? Not feel like we have to run away, not become impatient, not speak harshly to ourselves, but just, I don't know how many, a lot of us can't say we're truly our own BFF, but I think that we would all be better off if we were, right? Happier just in terms of our own lives, but also more available to for other people and to do the kinds of things we want to do in the world.
I remember one time actually missing a plane that you were on. And it created a whole disaster. And when I finally, 10 hours later, got to the destination, I learned that you actually tried to stop the plane. And I remember the feeling, it almost made the whole 10 hours worth it. Just the fact that there was someone looking out for you, like that's part of the generosity, right? Where both people benefit, the recipient and the giver. Correct?
Yeah. I think so. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I remember that. We were doing a training together. Yeah, and I remember you missing the plane. I remember being upset about it. I don't remember, I just remember now, that I hadn't remembered the trying to stop the plane, but I did. But the generosity piece, and I'm so glad you asked the young people about this, comes in for me, and it's both a material giving, but it's an attitude of mind, right? And I think the attitude of generosity is one where we're willing to extend ourselves or go the extra mile for someone else, not because we have to, not because we're getting something in return, but because we just care about them and we want to. And I think, we often think about generosity in terms of like food or money, which certainly at this time we think about on a societal level. There are communities that really need material support right now. And so, the ways in which we might be able to, if not now, in the future, volunteer or help support one another in that way, that's wonderful. But there's also the generosity with our time, right? Like to be willing to just listen to a friend, share what's on their mind and not be like, have our attention divided. Well, I guess that's another way of being generous, right? With our attention, to giving people our full undivided attention, that we have a lot of resources, even if we don't have a lot of money to give. We have love, we have attention, we have time, we have energy. And those kinds of things sometimes mean even more than giving someone money. Giving someone our undivided attention is one of the best gifts we can give.
A 12th grader asked the question, it's hard for me to love myself. What do you do to help you love yourself and be a friend to yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I so relate to this, and I think that the world doesn't often make it easy on us because our culture is one in which, big businesses are made on us not liking ourselves, basically. If you look at like the cosmetics industry, the fashion industry, some of it's for fun, but a lot of it's, to be like, oh, you don't look good enough. So here, try this cream. Here, buy this sweater, and trying to like ourselves more by kind of creating kind of from the outside in. And so the kind of friendship that we talk about with mindfulness is kind of from the inside out. And I think one good way to do this is to just contemplate or even make a list of the good qualities that you have, and this might feel silly because also in our culture, sometimes we're taught like, oh, if I list all the things that are good about me, that's somehow conceited or I'm being full of myself, but I'm telling you, no, it's a good thing to do. And to write down things like, even if you can't think of anything yourself, what are the things that your someone who loves you would say about you? Maybe a guardian, maybe a friend from school, maybe a teacher who's really supportive of you. What would they say is good about you? They might say that you're patient. They may say that you're honest or hardworking. They might say that you have courage. They might say you make them laugh. So just write those things down. Like, what's good about me? Because all of us are a mixed bag, okay? Myself included, everybody included. We all have things that are great about us, and we have things that maybe we'd like to change. And a lot of times we always, when we're having a hard time being friends with ourselves is because we're focusing on what's not right, what we want to change. And we all know we have those things. But equally, we should focus on what's right about us, what's good about us, and just keep a list. Literally, when someone gives you a compliment, when someone appreciates something you did for them, I mean, you can also include on the list kind things, like nice things you've done for people. And when you start to feel low, just bring that list out and read it, because that's you too. You know, I think that's a good place to start.
The same 12th grader said, what if you, because this is part of the subtitle of your book, Finding Your People in an Unjust World. She asks, what if you can't find your people in this world? What if you just don't fit in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, you know, what's so interesting is that a lot of people feel like they don't fit in, you know, which is interesting, right? Like whenever there have been times where I don't feel like I fit in, I think I'm the only, like everybody else is on the same team and I'm the only one on the outside. And then to come to find out, you know, actually a lot of people feel like they don't quite fit in, you know, and part of it is that, you know, you think about the different friendship groups at your school, maybe, right? Like there's people who get to, you know, are involved in the same activity, or they're like the same kind of subject, or they, you know, like the same kind of music, right? So there's different, you know, groups that start to form and people hang out together, like play the same video games, right? And even the funny thing is that even if you find a group that likes the same kind of thing that you like, you know, like for example, I was a dancer, right? So I hung out with all the dancers after school. We could get together on dance, but then sometimes I would feel lonely just because even though they're dancers doesn't mean that they know or love everything that I love, right? And it started to occur to me that there's never going to be a group of people that we're going to find that is a perfect fit for every part of us, right? Because I'm not just a dancer. I'm also a science nerd. I'm also love like dumb comedies. I also like action movies, you know? Like, so I'm not going to find like a pre-existing group of people that all like dance, you know, science, action movies. You know, but one way that I started to feel more at home with the people that I was with is just by sharing more of myself. Like rather than trying to leave out parts of myself to fit in with them, I started to be honest about like, hey, you know, like I like this action movie. Like, do you want to go see it with me? That kind of thing, just to see if I could. I mean, this is another aspect of generosity. I think share with them more of myself to feel included, rather than trying to find a group that already fits everything that I am. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense.
So the meditation and the mindfulness, do you think that helped you in being able to see clearly enough to separate that out and to know, okay, I'm not going to find everyone who has the exact same likes, but here's what I like and here's how I can connect to someone else. Did that meditation process help you discover that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I didn't start meditating until I was in my late teens. I was like 19. And so that was 20 years ago. I think that, yes. And I think how it did that was it made me more aware of what was actually going on with me, right? So I could actually more sensitive to feel that like, oh, I'm feeling a little awkward right now. And to pay attention to that as opposed to like pretend like, oh, that's not happening. I'm not feeling awkward. It gave me the strength to be like, what's happening right now? Oh, I'm feeling awkward. I'm feeling left out. And then what can I actually like, how can I actually relate to that right now? What can I actually do to support myself in this moment? And sometimes it's just acknowledging like, okay, I'm like kind of on the outs right now. Like, cool. This is how it feels to be like an individual, like kind of like a lone wolf, you know, I think, and that there's really cool things about that too. I think that it also made me, be able to be like, okay, so there's a need that I have that's not getting met by this friendship group, right? Let me open up and see like who else might I be able to relate to, not just the people that I'm like. The metaphor that sometimes given is, you know, don't go to the hardware store looking for oranges, you know? Like there might be a friendship group that I have that like, they're awesome. but they don't have everything that I need. And so like, let me, open my eyes and see like, who else did I not consider hanging out with before that might actually be a good fit for me in other ways.
So we have Oscar with us live, and I think he has a couple questions that he'd like to ask you. So Oscar, if you could turn your video on, unmute yourself. Kate is ready to hear your question.
Hello, Kate. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. So I have a question. Sometimes I feel nervous about making friends with people. Do you have any advice for me? So like, what's like the first step I need to do to make friends? Do I just shake them hand first and speak for myself, or what do I do first?
I think that's such a good question, and I think that that's already, to me, a sign that you're practicing mindfulness, but just noticing like, oh, I get nervous, right? And so my a lot of times when I feel nervous, it's because I'm like really focusing on myself. I'm like, oh my God, am I going to say the right thing? Does my hair look fluffy? It's like this extreme self-consciousness, right? I think that one of the things that we can do in those moments of nervousness is shift our awareness from paying attention to me to paying attention to the other person and really asking them questions. Like, it could be a handshake. It could be like, how are you doing today? Have you seen any good movies lately? How do you like this class? If we're in a class together, if I see they have a book in their hand, I'd be like, oh, like, tell me more about that book. Like, are you into it? Would you recommend it? So I think one is kind of what you're saying, like noticing if someone's open to talking, and like usually we can tell that, like, kind of their body language. They might turn towards us, or they might smile, or just, and then we might say like, hey, how you doing? A handshake is always nice, or just a wave, and then ask them a question about themselves and really practice listening fully. Like, because I think that can always also happen when we ask a question, then we can sometimes be, rather than really listening, thinking about what we're going to say. So like, when we ask a question, really, try as best we can to listen and be present with what they're saying, and maybe ask a follow-up. Does that sound like something you would try?
Yes, I will try that.
Okay, cool. Do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have another question. What does the word friendship mean to you? Like, what is the meaning of friendship to you?
Oh, what a beautiful question. I think it's changed for me over time. Like, I think back in the day, it used to be, someone that I would hang out with, right? And we'd have common interests, like someone that, we both like to go get our nails done together. We read the same kind of books. As I mentioned, we're both dancers or whatever. And that's still true. Like, I think a lot of my friends, we like the same things. We care about the same things. So it's easy for us to hang out and talk. I think that when I wrote my book, my definition of friendship started to get larger to include like a friend being someone who is willing to show up for our own and each other's well-being and freedom, And so that, to me, that's a larger definition of friendship, because I don't even have to necessarily like you to care about you and want you to be happy and want you to have everything you need in this life. And for me, that's a way of talking about friendship, not only just between, people, but also between communities, like to really let friendship be a way of wishing well for everybody, regardless of, who they are. That's what I would say. How about you? What's your definition of friendship?
I think my definition of friendship means getting together. It means like if we make new friends for if we know each other for a week, we should do something. Like, we should increase our friendship, to do activities, to go outside, or to communicate each other.
Yeah, I think that's true. Do you feel like you I think that could be also a real activity of friendship, right? That you reach out to people and ask them like, hey, you want to do this activity with me? Or, kind of making the first move, as you mentioned, to be friends, inviting someone. Yeah.
Oscar, thank you so much. Great questions.
Thanks, Oscar. Nice to meet you.
Kate, there is an 11th grader who says, and I have heard this a million times in my years working in high school, people are so fake in high school. How can you trust anyone nowadays?
Oh my
You say to that
gosh.
kid?
Well, I was thinking about this last night because I know I was going to talk to you all, and I was in high school. It wasn't easy, I think part of, in retrospect, like everybody is just trying to figure out who they are, and that is true of high school, but it's also, for better or for worse, kind of true all our lives, I think, too. Even as an adult, right? There's this way of like trying to figure out who we are, like trying to be happy, not exactly knowing how to do that, doing our best. And in that process, it can be messy. We could think that we could get confused and get jealous of one another, or think that there's another person who's in between us and our happiness. It can cause us to act petty. So I think one of the things that's helpful for me is just to remember that, one, what people are being fake, it usually has more to do with them than with me, which is not to condemn them, right? We're all fake sometimes, like we are, but not to take it personally, to be like, oh, they're being fake with me, and that's like, they're doing something to me, but just like, wow, this person is having a hard time being real right now, and that sucks. That sucks. Like we all know what that's like when you're like with a group of people and you want to bring yourself forward, you want to be real, and you feel like you can't for whatever reason. And so that's that feeling of, oh, it must be hard to be them right now, actually, is a way of describing this other quality of friendliness called compassion, right? Is recognizing that somebody is acting a certain way because they're probably having a hard time. And that doesn't mean they get to treat me any way they want. It doesn't mean I put myself in the space of like being, talked down to by somebody or treated badly. But it does mean like I can recognize, oh, this person's having a hard time. I cannot judge them for it, and I can just remove myself from the situation and find somebody who is willing to be real with me, because there are always those people too.
So Damien asked the question. He says, how do you stay so calm? So the first question is this an accurate portrayal of you? Are you always calm because you meditate for all these years and you're a famous meditation teacher? Are you always calm? Is this accurate? Is that the point of meditation, to never be stressed?
I mean, I'm impressed that you think I'm calm. I must be doing a good job coming off that way. But I'm not always calm, certainly. I mean, I woke up this morning feeling, anxiety, just probably like everybody else on the planet today, right? Like I'm sheltered at home with my family. I'm not sure, kind of, the future seems uncertain. So I don't think I'm always calm, but I do think that since I've been meditating, I've been more able to bring myself back to a state of calm when I get panicked. And that, I think, is the real gift, right? Meditation is not going to, first of all, not going to get rid of my personality. That would take a lot longer than I've been meditating, many more than 2 decades, right, to get rid of this personality. And it's also not, and part of my personality is to get excited about things. Like I get really, I get excited about pretty much everything: food, cute dogs on the street, just so that sense of like being able to have delight, being able to have wonder, being able to have excitement, is a good part of our human emotional range. It's not exactly calm, and meditation is not going to decrease those. If anything, it's going to make us more available to feel joy and to feel happiness and to feel wonder. And then in terms of the emotions that are more difficult to feel, like anxiety or like depression, I still feel all those things too, but I don't stay there quite so long. I know how to bring myself back. And that I would say gives me a kind of confidence that I did not have before I meditated.
So just to follow up on that, I know from my own practice, the mindfulness actually makes you more curious about the world around you, right? Because you begin to see clearly, like, I never noticed this, or I never noticed this. And it creates that wonder that you said, right? It just makes you a little more engaged in comedies and whatever it is that you're involved in.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that it's almost like, I know for those of you who have iPhone filters where you have, or any kind of phone filter where you can change the filter and make the color more saturated. I feel like mindfulness can do that to our life. It can kind of bump up the color, so that we are have a feeling of, the richness of our human experience and what it feels like to really be present with ourselves, to be present in the world, and it can make the colors look more colorful, and the good times feel more beautiful. And then somehow on the other side of things, it can lessen the lows that we might experience just in day to day. That's how I think. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that noticing more is one of the benefits of mindfulness. Because then, and how beautiful is that? Because then we don't like sleepwalk through our lives, right? I mean, we've all had those days where, you know, you get to the end of the day and you're like, what did I do today? Like, how did I even spend, what even happened, you know? And we, you know, each day of our life is precious. And so to be able to really be there for all of it, I think is a real gift of mindfulness.
Last week, we interviewed Dr. Roberto Canessa, the survivor of the Andes plane crash in 1972, a hero. It was an unbelievable story. And one of the things that he shared was that experience taught him the power of the present moment. And he and I had a conversation off air, like we were texting back and forth. And it was like, but the magic of mindfulness is you don't need to be in a situation of life and death to have that understanding, right?
Yeah.
You can wake up to the preciousness of your life just in this ordinary moment.
Right, right. Well, and not to be, you know, dour or whatever, but we are in a life or death situation kind of all the time. Like that's, you know, and I think, you know, we're experiencing that now on a more societal scale, right? Where we see that some of our communities, especially our Black and Brown communities, are more affected by COVID-19. Like communities basically where healthcare wasn't so great before, it's even more exposing that to us now and worse now, right? And also, right, we're not only in a death situation, we're in a life situation every day, right? Like this is our actual life. It's not a dress rehearsal, and we don't get it, you know, a do-over necessarily. This is what it is. And so how can we make the most of it and not wait to be present, because time is something we don't get back, and the time that we're in right now really matters.
So I know you have a hard out at 3:30. Very quick, in 60 seconds or left, can you answer the question? Damien says, what am I supposed to do when I can't meditate? Because not everyone wants to meditate.
Yeah. Well, I think doing anything that can connect you with your senses, which is part of what we do in meditation anyway, right? So if you can connect with one of your 5 senses and really be really present with that experience, that's a really good way to practice mindfulness without meditating. So when you're drinking, you know, I'll say a healthy glass of water with a lemon or whatever you're drinking, like if you can really taste that and like, take a sip and also notice how it tastes as it fades. Like that's a moment of connection with your senses. If you can listen to a piece of beautiful music and not, you know, think about something or clean your room or whatever, but just sit there and really listen to the music and like connect with your senses that way. That's a really great way. If you want to move, as Dean Simmons said earlier, this is a good time to kind of get up and get moving. If you can take a walk, take a deep breath, and really when you're walking, even if it's just in your house, feel your feet touching the floor. It's another way to be mindful. So there's that phrase, when people say someone lost their senses, it's like means that they went crazy a little bit, right? But that's true. Like when we're not present, we literally lose touch of our senses. So coming back to, you know, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling with the body, it's a way to come back and support yourself with mindfulness anytime, whatever you're doing.
Kate, this has been unbelievably beneficial to me, and I know everyone watching. And we really, really thank you from the bottom of our heart. When this whole thing is over, will you come visit Food and Finance High School? Will you say,
oh my gosh, I would love to. Thank you for that invitation. Yes, I absolutely will.
So we have a lot of people coming, people you know, Sharon, Sabine, lots of Booker. We'll have a big party. The crew. So it was fantastic to see you, really, and for everyone else to see. Thank you so much, Kate.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You're doing wonderful things. I'm really happy you're doing this series, and it's been lovely to connect with you, Oscar. And yeah, I'm glad to hear.
Kate's book is Radical Friendship, How to Love Yourself and Find Your People in an Unjust World. It is coming out in August, and we can't wait for it. And next week, we have, I have to get this straight here, reporter, lawyer, columnist for the Daily Beast, author of 6 best-selling books on meditation, frequent commentator on MSNBC and NPR, LGBT activist, teacher and editor of the 10% Happier Meditation app, and Rabbi Jay Michelson. He will be here next week on Calm and Connected, and he sent this message out. You can ask him anything. Till then, stay calm and connected, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.